the 18th, 2020 at 4:30, and let me call the roll. Councilmember Nakamura.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Linda Mood.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
The mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly's not here yet, but he is coming, right?
Yeah,
Nobody.
I talked to him today.
So when he gets here, we'll note that in the minutes. So we're starting early today at 4:30, so have plenty of time to talk about these items. First one is discussion of the vision for the Northern Gateway property. Adrian, you gonna lead that off?
I sure will. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I am very excited for us to have this discussion. It feels like it's been a long time coming. We've been talking about our Northern Gateway property for quite some time, and now that we've got the majority of the parcels assembled, we're ready to kind of start on the visioning conversation. So on the staff side, we've of course had quite a few conversations, and I've updated you a little bit along the way that we've engaged Master Plan, and Dallas is going to get up here and lead us in a presentation and discussion here shortly. And he sat down with Mark and Jerry and I and the mayor a week or two ago to plan for this conversation. And he'll kind of walk you through what the goals are for tonight, but just at a very high level, this is intended to be a first blush conversation to get your input and to get everybody on the same page of understanding so that we can all move forward in conjunction together and are all on the same path forward. And so Dallas with Master Plan, he's got a ton of experience in this area. Dallas, if you want to come on up. Sure. I certainly won't do his background justice, but I know Mark had the opportunity to work with him in Flower Mound previously, and Dallas has been very experienced in a lot of different projects that really have that eye to quality, and that's part of the experience that attracted us to working together on this project. If you're familiar with, Highland Park Village or American Airlines Center or some of the other major projects that his firm has been involved with over the years, certainly, decades of that experience, and had a father, as I understand it, that was on the Dallas City Council. So he's got clients that are on both the city side of the spectrum and also on kind of the end user developer side. So understanding that balance of what both parties are looking for so that we can plan something that also still has a good ability to be successful and isn't so pie in the sky that it can never happen, but also holds firm to those quality aspects that we know that we want for the project. So with that, I will get out of the way and let you take it from here.
Thank you. So I'm Dallas. My colleague Karen Wunsch, who runs our Austin office, is here too, because I think she can speak to some of the things in her area. So it's nice. My staff members usually go to great lengths to make sure to tell me and bury that I live in University Park. So I've lived almost my whole life in University Park, and it's the rare occasion here that I can actually admit that I'm a Park Cities guy, because we have two of the best village-type shopping centers, arguably in the country, but particularly in the state, that I have used since I was a boy and can ride a bike, and now reluctantly have to go with an 11-year-old boy to try and do shopping and things. So, that being said, Karen's a daughter of two, so, I am not a desirable demographic as a shopper. Developers don't care about me, retailers don't, but they do care about my children and my wife. And they do appreciate that I get paid, and so they can shop. So, that's one of the things we'll talk about here is that you just have to be realistic. And so, as Adrian said, my grandfather built the first shopping mall in Dallas. Unfortunately, it was not at North Park, it was at Lockwood, or else I guess I'd just be counting money at North Park. I mean, that might not be so fun, but my dad served on the Dallas Council from 65 to 80 and then started this. Does this work? From 65 to 80, and so he worked with Mayor Vandergriff on bringing the Rangers here, was very involved in the Mavericks move, so building DFW Airport, a lot of things went on in that era. And so we've since merged with the LaBarba family's alcohol permitting business, which really puts us in front of a lot of restaurant, and I know maybe not for here bar clients, but restaurants that have a bar component. We deal with the end user on those types of places, and they range from the independent operator like Javier's to Gloria's and lots of chain places, Buffalo Wild Wings, and all the way to 7-Eleven on the convenience store end. So, it's a good combination. Here are three projects you guys know. Obviously, we have worked on American Airlines Center, since I was the guy, literally, I would go to meetings because I knew all the parking spaces. I knew how many spaces there were and where the lots were, all stuff that my staff members now think, you knew that much detail? I was like, yeah, that was my role, someone would point to me and, I would need to know about, no, there's many in this garage, or there will be this many in these areas. We got to work on President Bush's house. That was obviously a nice honor. I learned very quickly there's two things about the Secret Service that are really important. Secret, and number two, it's secret so important they carry a gun that's that important. So that was a very unusual assignment, but we're that way on everything we work on, that everything that you say that's in confidence a lot of this is in the public record, but you guys are the coach. We're sort of the quarterback, and you're gonna call the play into the helmet. We will run it the best way we can. That being said, tonight is kind of quarterback coming over to the sideline and talking with you about here's what we think we've seen work. And like Rosewood Court, Mark and I was telling Karen, Mark and I worked on a Rosewood project in Flower Mound with the Academy anchor that really turned out good. This is an opportunity where we really want excellent, we don't even want good. And I really challenge all of you that your kids and your grandkids are gonna point to your work here that you do, and getting it right. My dad always said in real estate, you often have to choose between going fast and getting it right. Here, and developers, we deal with these people every day. And a lot of times there's a contract problem or a financing problem, and we gotta go fast. And sometimes the details suffer for that. And that's not, I intend to go, this process is gonna take as long as y'all decide that it should take. We'll work as fast as you want us to. The mayor and staff gave us good direction. We tried to put together something that hopefully will be helpful for you guys. On with the show. Okay, so here are some of our clients. We work for lots of big publicly traded companies. Increasingly, that's the case. Maybe unfortunately, in the early part of my career at Master Plan, we dealt with a lot more of the Bob Folsom companies. You might remember, they're still in business, but the local developer is not our predominant engagement anymore. It's really more national people. Okay, so here's something I like to start with. So this is, anybody familiar with this term? Okay, so this is a concept that came since we've all finished going to school in 2002. This was a study that was done, and it's been widely used. I guess it was sociologists that first did it. It's widely been used by economists and all these other people, and it's really this belief that humans fail to understand that they often don't understand things. And so they showed people all of these objects, like a crossbow. You know what a crossbow is? Yeah, right. And that's what people say. And they would ask them to rate them on a scale of 1 to 8. How much you know about these things? A refrigerator, batteries, these objects. And people would say, oh, that's a crossbow. Maybe like the Middle Ages, 7 or an 8. Then they'd come back and they would do would you please write down all the materials you need to make this crossbow, the different types of woods and the string and the arrows, and how long will it take you to make this device? After you have to try to do that, then they ask, how much do you know about a crossbow? And guess what the answer is?
Not much.
Like a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And the more educated people are, the lower they will grade themselves on the second effort, because they've realized, and that's one of the problems we kind of have is we have overconfidence about things that we sort of crowdsource. That, everybody else knows about a shopping center, and so it's all going to work out. No, it will work out if we all work it out, and that we get all of the things just right. And all the things matter. I think we'll be talking big picture, but the little stuff like what do the signs look like, and where's the parking, and how much landscaping, it's all about feel. People ever been to Disney and not be happy? There are a few people. But wouldn't you say by and large they just get it right all the time? I was there one time at Christmas, and a guy in like a coat and tie snatched up a piece of trash. There was an employee, and so I was very interested in this, and I asked what his job was. He's a senior vice president or something. But it's a busy day, and it was more important for him to be out on the floor, as he called it. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty good servant leadership there. But everybody does that. Everybody does that. And that's why when you go, you have a good experience. Rarely do you have a bad Chick-fil-A experience. There's just some things that, we had a baseball tournament. We were trying to decide in between games this weekend. And I had 3 11-year-olds in the car, and my son said, "Dad, it's too risky to go there. We got to go to Chick-fil-A. They'll get it right in the drive-thru." I didn't know it was that big a decision. I thought we were just eating in between games before we were going to get killed, which we did. I had seen the other team play, and I had seen us play a lot this summer. Okay, so I know all of you are, and I appreciate, I grew up with an elected official. I'm now the president of the Highland Park Education Foundation. I get lots of phone calls. I got a bunch today about, the kinds of people that are very interested in a community, which you would like, but often they suffer from the illusion of, of explanatory depth. They know a lot, but they don't always know a lot about exactly what we're talking about. And so that's just, throughout this process, I want you to challenge me, and I'll challenge all of you. Let's get this right and not assume that we know things. I have to tell myself all the time, when I look at shopping centers, I should not bring my viewpoint very far along, because I'm not a desirable demographic. I'm a married, over 50-year-old male. Nobody cares. How much shopping do we do? Men go buying, women go shopping. I need a new 9-iron because I'm not hitting it very well. I might need to go buy, but I'm going to go buy that. I'm not going to go shop. I don't like to go shop. The only place I like, there are a few places. So at any rate, most of what we do is we believe in talking about what the market is. And we'll talk about that, but in this instant, getting it right, let the market kind of come to you. I think good planning is us like driving a car. We're driving forward. We got to look in the rearview mirror a little bit because it informs us about what's happened in the past, and that's important. But you can't drive the car very effectively if we're worried about all the things in the past. It's not just your past. It's the South Lake Town Center's past, and it's the Keller Town Center's past, and all these things. And, you've got to be you. Everybody else is already taken. So I'm gonna say the Highland Park Village is by far the best shopping center in the state of Texas. Don't try to replicate it, because it won't be right for you guys. It's changed a lot in my lifetime, and I rarely shop there. In fact, I don't know many people that do, but it's a great place to go. Okay, so the goal tonight is to have a discussion, and I want y'all to interrupt me. I'm a man of many words. I can't tell you how happy I'm to be here. I haven't gotten to go to a city since March. I got to put on my uniform. This is isn't this fun? This is great. I'm out of a house on a Tuesday night like I'm supposed to be. This is wonderful. So thank you. So I want us to have a discussion about what you guys think. Because at the end of this, I want us to have this all to have been a fun engagement. I think work should be fun, and when you get it right, usually it is fun and rewarding. And so we're going to give you kind of a tour tonight of things that work and things that don't. So, okay, often when we're on a project and we'll have 3 people on it, I sometimes will call Karen or call somebody that hadn't worked on it at all and ask them what do they think. Because sometimes you're so close to it, you can't see. And, y'all all know the great things about the site, that, it's a great site, and everybody knows where it is, and there's a lot of community pride behind this activity. It's got the hike and bike trail. Those are all facts. Now is not the guy from here, and I don't live here. My experience in Colleyville is mostly when we play baseball here, or we come for dance competitions. That's the most frequent. I'm here for kid activities. And I will say, Park City's moms find this an acceptable venue, which I think is important, because y'all are all, it's the same communities largely. You care about your kids, you're here because of really good schools, you have really nice homes, and really nice neighborhoods. And so you're a little underserved for restaurant and retail, and I think you're kind of, I have no doubt y'all want to have a Highland Park Village. I'm a Snyder Plaza guy. I'm a UP guy. I'm country cousins to Highland Park folks. People not there all think it's the same. It's not. There is a distinction, but for our purposes here, we'll lump them together. But I do think y'all want to have something that y'all can call your own that fits who the community is. I can't tell you what that is. I can respond to questions or what do I think, but that's the goal, is to figure out what that thing is. So some of the things that I think we got to keep in mind about the property that are bad side of the ledger are the economy. We don't know what restaurants are going to do. I mean, and I can tell you our restaurant clients are really fearful. I don't mean worried. I mean past that to like McCarthyism fear. I mean, you know, that you know, really troubled. You know, this site, you know, you got a street that bisects the sites. That's not optimal. I mean, you have pedestrian issues. There's public safety issues there. You don't control all of it. It's a weird shape. Triangles are harder to deal with. These are all things that are completely solvable, but we have to at least address. And first of all, y'all should totally congratulate yourselves because you follow these things. You have enough money that you can go out and do this. This never happens. We've never had, I mean, we're a 50-year-old business nearly. This will be maybe the only time we ever get to have this kind of assignment. So it's kind of a real treat, to be honest. I mean, people in the office were like, I really want to work on that. I mean, we don't get that much volunteering, particularly for city assignments. You know, so this is what I think the community assets are. And staff sort of shared with us. And I actually thought these before. I mean, just from coming out here for zoning cases in the past. I mean, okay, so this is what's also what staff has shared with us that they think, that you think, and where we should be headed. That, you know, the open space is important. Premier dining. Now, I think we're going to have to talk about what is, and we may have a whole separate discussion sometime where y'all can tell me what you think dining is. I've done enough mixed-use projects across the whole region. You know, talking to people like Mark who would say, well, we really would like Javier's. Javier's one of your clients. Why don't you call Javier? No, Javier only drives his you know, Ferrari about 2 miles from uptown to there. I mean, that's sort of a joke, but not really. And you know, what is the Plates place? That Suzanne Roberts, you know that? There's this lady, I don't know, it's got all this Mackenzie Child stuff. I don't get it, but I know I can go there and get the perfect birthday, anniversary. My wife is really into plates, which is better than shoes or handbags. This lady has a real following, and there are developer after developer that ask her, will you open one at the Shops of Legacy? Will you open in Grapevine? She has one store that she is in every day in University Park. And guess what? The 7 people in the region that are really into plates are happy to drive there. I married one of those. So, it's not funny. Okay, so.
Expensive, I'll bet.
Less than shoes, you know, so I could be worse. Her sister's into shoes and purses, so, okay, so your demographics, y'all know these things. I was a little surprised. I mean, first of all, I'm overwhelmed that the home ownership, I mean, 96%, you know, compared to my neighborhood's 82, we have a lot of you know, more than you would probably think. We have rental. A little surprised your bachelor's is not higher, but I bet it'll climb in the next, you know, maybe census period.
Our what? I didn't
Your
know.
65%. I would have thought y'all
College
would
degrees.
I thought y'all would have been higher, and I suspect that number will grow over the next 20 years for sure. But you know, there aren't many places that can have a special kind of center. Y'all have the demographics to do it, and you have the demographics to attract the right kind of developer to do this for you. I'm probably not going to try, I'm trying to be open-minded, but I think in this case, right mind, a lot of that is somebody that is not a merchant builder, that they are, one of the things, the biggest secret is people who hold things a long time and have personal pride and take a lot of interest in who are the renters and everything that's there. And I have some small clients that are shopping center people that they have an office on the sites, and they know when the parking lot has too much grease on it. I mean, you want people that really, you know, my dad always said about hiring people, you can't pay someone to care. They come to us already either caring or not caring. And I think that's pretty good advice for anything. Okay, so we've all been, probably, has everybody been to all these things?
Yep.
Okay, those are experiences. Humans like experiences. That's why you want to go to Disney or, you know, Paris, go to the Eiffel Tower. North Texas, you know, we don't have great mountains here or the beach or those sorts of things. Top activity here is to shop largely. And so, like it or not, I mean, these are iconic experiences for people, is that they, you know, they've gone to all of them, you know, and so, and those are shopping trips. they're not buying trips, and people cross-shop at all these places. Even in, maybe it's more in Neiman's, but the other places, and it's because how they're designed, it's a very pleasant experience. That's where the bar is in my mind. Okay, so how many people have been to Kansas City to Country Club Plaza? What do you think?
It's changed a lot in the last 25 years. It started out really slow, but probably 15 years ago, it really picked up, and it's nice. I just went there to eat.
Yeah, but they have a Ritz.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the, you know, it has a lot of firsts. It was the first to have be the automobile type shopping center. You know, it's the first that had common management that was there on site, that they decided on the tenants, not the other way around. I mean, it's like the Highland Park Village. You know, they'll decide if you can rent there, not how most shopping centers work. They're the first with unified architecture, you know, and this is called Moorish Revival, like in Seville. And it's really, when you go there, it's just really cool. I mean, one of the things about the Highland Park Village is it has that very distinct architecture, but the town of Highland Park and even UP adopts it. As you enter our communities, you start seeing that kind of architecture. The schools play off on it, so or the elementary schools do. So I think unified architecture, I mean, I see some nodding like, oh yeah, that looks good. I mean, well, that you know, people's perception is it looks good. You know, in talking to staff, I was like, okay, well, how should I treat the South Lake Town Center? I know y'all all spend a lot of time there. I was encouraged to just say what I think. I have a hard time knowing where anything is. The architecture, it's just real like big and unwieldy. And I do think they have great stores and they do great sales tax numbers. But I just am never comfortable there. We'll meet a couple friends who live in South Lake, and every time I'm like, where's Mika C? I mean, I know that it's here, but it's too big and I can't find it. This place, despite being 55 acres, very walkable, and it makes you want to walk around it, which is great for merchants. So I'd encourage you to kind of maybe go to Google Earth and do a little tour on it. It's worth the time. Okay, so these are things I've also worked on that didn't work out great. Park Lane, that's across the street from North Park. And unfortunately, that's what most people refer to this shopping center as. Oh, the thing across the street from North Park. What do they have there? That is not what you want to have said about your shopping center. And they have a number of big box users. They have discount stores. They failed. Their tenant mix is a mix of stuff for kids and young adults. I just think it's kind of a mess. It's nice, but and it's such a great piece of real estate. Terrible missed opportunity. They back all their parking up to 75 where you can't see. We'll see another one where they did the same thing too. Solving for parking is really not sexy. It's maybe the most important thing we're due. Because you gotta have more parking than you need. Developers don't like to do more than they need because it's expensive. But if you put it in the wrong place, I mean, it has to be convenient. That's one of the things that just has to work. But it has to not mar the project. Waters Creek in Allen, good stores, good dining, good, now it has a lot of multifamily. I know this is not our vision here, but it's the same thing, kind of hard to use. They relied on some bigger users like Barnes & Noble, and, the internet has really hurt them. You'll hear me preach, one owner, many doors. The more different doors you have, the more village-like it is, and not Highland Park Village necessarily, but like town center, and more opportunities for smaller merchants and local merchants. Here's one, Keller Town Center. I've worked in it a couple of times. Have most of y'all been there, I guess? That Jasper's restaurant's good. Is it still open? Not anymore. It was really good, but they had a destination restaurant.
F&G is there.
Okay,
F&G,
it is.
they're still stable.
Okay. But their retail never worked. And one of the main reasons it never worked is they failed to identify, they had an illusion of explanatory depth. they were like, oh, we're gonna do a first-class shopping center. They absolutely did. They're gonna have the municipal thing near there. I'm not a believer, people don't go to City Hall for fun. I mean, they just a no.
It's a shock.
I know, I do, I do it for work. I just have fun at work. But they failed to take into account what sort of a hegemonic presence that the South Lake Town Center is. And as such, you know, they tried to replicate it partly. Oh, we're gonna do something like the South Lake Town Center. Why? They already did that. You be you. And so,
They've stretched out along
It-
the road. I mean, there isn't any
they don't have any anchor.
other than 377.
Yes, and so it's just, it just hasn't worked, and that's not good. Okay, so, here's one on Northwest Highway between Skilburn and Abrams that I did very recently. It's got a really good academy, it's got TJ Maxx and Party City, and it's a collection of good box users. But when you do that, you still get more like shopping. I'm gonna go to Academy, but I'm not gonna go to the other places, and my wife's gonna go to Party City, but she's not gonna go there. So I'm not saying we shouldn't consider some boxes, because you have to have some anchors. And we'll look at some places at how they use anchors in some of these more successful ones. And, you know, like the Houston one, we put it on there because it has just outrageously bad copycat kind of architecture. You don't want that where people are making fun of you because it seems like it's not real. Because it's not, I mean, I think power centers are really great, and they're great for sales tax. That's real, and I saw Mark nodding, yeah, great for sales tax, you got your old hat on there. But that's not what my direction has been here to tell you guys. And I'll show you a couple of ones I think are success stories. So, okay, Karen's gonna run through her far away Texas examples here while I take a little break.
All right.
So
Well, Dallas is no
Karen-
fun to follow in a
Karen came,
presentation.
so Karen worked here, so she was assistant director in Garland before her husband made them move down to Austin. And she started her own business, and then we merged, what, long time ago.
7 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been in actually, I think my career in Austin is now longer than my career in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but time has a way of doing that, I guess, just slipping by. But Dallas reached out to me, and we just talked on the phone, and he asked for some examples, from Central Texas area, and these were the ones that came to my mind most quickly. And I don't know how many of you, venture to that part of the state much, but the Hill Country Galleria is in Bee Cave. Shops at La Cantera in San Antonio was another example that came to mind, the Domain in Austin, and then a newer center in Lakeway, and I'll go into a little bit more detail.
Bee Cave is really very close to Austin, though.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So I guess in
Very
terms
close
of
to-
geography,
Close to Domain.
Austin, and then out west of
West
the city
side.
of Austin is Lake Travis, of course, and that's where the city of Lakeway wraps around
Right.
Lake Travis.
And
And
Bee
then
Cave is
adjacent
southwest.
to that is Bee Cave, like on 71,
Right.
straddles 71.
Which one is that
Exactly.
lower right picture?
The lower right is from the Domain, and that's a newer, much larger than the 60 acres or so that you guys have available. It's closer to like 300 acres, but it was done in phases. The first phase was smaller, more traditional retail, mixed use with, residential component. But then this photograph is from the second phase. So here's Hill Country Gallery, and this has a little bit of interesting story in that it first came online around the time, not too much longer, or too much after I moved to Austin, and just in time for the most recent recession. And it's a mixed-use project, so it has retail, a movie theater, office, and some residential, not a lot of residential. But similar to what you guys have going on here, there is a town center component. They have the public library, which is here, and City Hall is in this building. And then across from that, this grassy area where they
do outdoor festivals. There's a splash park there now. I think it went into bankruptcy and then was purchased by a new owner. They did a little bit of redesign around the city plaza, and it seems to have stabilized. But some of the missed opportunity there was everyone was so excited that we were going to get Nordstrom's too, and that never happened. Another interesting characteristic of this, and another one of the centers that I'll show you, is the idea of a grocery being an anchor. So the anchors here I would describe as there's a Dillard's, there's a Cinemark movie theater, there's a Dick's Sporting Goods, and then Whole Foods. And the Whole Foods, because there's a restaurant there, there's also a bar, view of the sunset, and then occasionally live music, that serves as an anchor. What I'm not sure of, and sometimes I'll go there to work, because I have a nice upstairs patio, not on a day like this, but when the weather's nicer, I'll work outside sometimes between meetings. And I don't know, I mean, I feel like it's an anchor, but do I go to the grocery store and then shop? I don't know how, you talked about cross-shopping, and I'm not sure how that plays into it, but it is an interesting observation. This is the Shops at La Cantera in San Antonio. The name's a little bit misleading. It's basically just an outdoor mall, but what they do well is the outdoor common public space. There's as you can imagine, in San Antonio being such a big, convention city, and a lot of sports teams and tournaments, and proximity to Mexico, so a lot of international travel. What they're good at doing is getting families there and getting them to stay. So even when we go down, my family goes down for tournaments, we'll go to the store. My husband, who's probably like Dallas, he buys, he doesn't shop, but he'll go because he wants to be with the family, but he can sit and be entertained and enjoy himself and be comfortable, which just prolongs the stay of the visit.
Some of that seems to be new in the last 10 years or so.
Yes.
The shops were there, but there was very little decoration. So.
Maybe so. I'm not really sure.
We've been there all the time.
I guess the other interesting thing when you look at an aerial image of this is it really shows its roots as a mall. It's basically that in the center, surrounded by parking. And then across the interstate is the UTSA campus. And then this is the domain. This picture, as I mentioned, is from phase 2, which I think is a little bit more interesting and well done. Whereas phase 1 was, just kind of establishing this mixed use concept with the retail and restaurants and residential. Phase 2 is more of an entertainment district. So a lot of, it's almost become a second, I don't mean this to sound like it's seedy or techy, it's not, but it's a second downtown district for nightlife. So some of the, old-timey local favorites in Austin that used to be on 6th Street, that's, now 6th Street's kind of, dirty 6th. A lot of those have relocated to this area as a second location, but it doesn't have a Disney-esque feel. It's surprisingly well done, where it just feels right and comfortable. Again, lots of shade and outdoor amenities, outdoor spaces for congregating, and then unique restaurants. I read that over half of the restaurants that are in this area are unique, like local mom and pop restaurants that are unique to the area, and then the outdoor spaces. So one of the unique restaurants, if you're ever in the area, check out Culinary Dropout, which is a really fun, delicious restaurant. But they also have like games, and it's encouraged as a place to hang out. And then outside, there's a large open area where in the evenings you'll see like group yoga classes going on, or group exercise classes. So, and I guess once you're there and you've done your yoga, you might want to go get some tea with your friend, or pick up something, or go to Culinary Dropout. So just a lot of opportunities to get people there and then get them to stay. This is the newest of the bunch that I'm showing you. This is the Oaks at Lakeway. This is another example of a center that I think has a grocery store as an anchor, which is interesting. Lakeway forever had only one grocery store, Randall's, and everybody wanted an H-E-B. So they would travel probably 6 miles one direction to an H-E-B and then maybe 5, but around the corner the other direction. So a new flagship H-E-B opened, and similar to the Whole Foods concept, they have a restaurant on site. They, will sell a glass of wine at the restaurant, and then occasionally there's bands that'll play at the outdoor patio. Their other anchor, probably the closest thing, would be indoor entertainment business. It's a locally owned. They have bowling alleys, games, arcade games, laser tag, that type of thing. And then everything else is just filling in between those two. Restaurants, service, retail, Orange Theory, those types of uses. Now we're back to the local comparisons.
Local stuff, okay,
Yep.
thank you, Karen.
I
Were
guess
y'all
before I
familiar,
sit
have y'all been
down,
to several of those?
any
Everybody been to the
questions?
Domain? Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, so, I think you got a homework assignment, like, that shows a map of where all these places are. If you're in my area, I'm happy to meet you over there and show you. Mayor, I know the UP mayors and HP mayor are happy to host you too. They like to brag on their very old shopping centers. So, because we have 2 good ones. Okay, so like in Kansas City, the Highland Park Villages had very patient ownership. So they are on their 2nd owner, same as Kansas City. Kansas City really never even sold. They just merged with somebody. So they're really kind of only on their 1st one. That's a secret sauce. So, and probably we'll come back and do more pictures of this, because I think this is one, and these are ones I took. I've suggested to staff that like maybe getting some professionally shot really is gonna matter here, because all the tiny little things, I'm not a good photographer. But my high schoolers taught me how to use that iPhone pretty good. I mean, but all of these things, it's all the small stuff, the tile work, the railings, the architecture. I mean, all of these things are so important. And I don't know if they do result in more sales. They definitely result in more rent for the owners. And they mostly result in a really pleasant experience. I mean, I didn't know this. All I knew is when I got a car and could start driving, but I would try and take a date, if I could find one, to Highland Park Village, and what was that Italian place that all the prices were like $6.71, all the menu things ended, and they've been replaced by a higher end dining. But I would go because it's just kind of a fun place to walk around. And I had an older buddy who told me that was played varsity baseball as a freshman. Those guys were a bad influence, but sometimes a good one. But they were like, no, just take your date to Highland Park Village and have a great time. Still works with my wife. It really does. And she's heard this story, but it absolutely does. And you have people, who drive probably from here to go to Mi Casina in Highland Park Village, or they just like, oh, let's go to Highland Park Village. And we'll walk around and get something to eat. That's what you guys really want is, we're going out tonight and we're going to the whatever at Colleyville, and we'll figure it out when we get there. And everybody's pretty happy, whether you're a youth or a grandparent. Or hopefully they're going together and the grandparents are buying. That's the best thing as a parent. Here, the movie theater runs because ownership is happy for it to lose money. They run it themselves. It's a community service of sorts. If they break even, they're happy. They have a bar there. That's not really their thing, but the town was okay. It's only open when the movie is, and so that seemed to be kind of limited. So here, this is my list. I think you'd come up with a long one. Great architectural elements. Super clean. Like the parking lot is clean. The underground parking is super clean. Really strong sense of place. When you're in the Highland Park Village. They also do a lot of advertising. They have billboards, they're in all of the trade magazines for conventions. And if you check all the best hotels, I've done this before, Stoneleigh, Melrose, whatever it is, the Ritz, one of their top, probably their top destination is going to be somewhere at the Holland Park Village. It may be Cafe Pacific, it could be Chanel store, whatever, that famous jeweler who I haven't had to go to, thankfully, because we get plates. So importantly, morning through evening uses. They've got Starbucks. Now their Starbucks is a fancy Starbucks, and people are, it's either they're in their Lulu or they're like really dressed up. But they have substituted their restaurant, their grocer, Tom Thumb, for Royal Blue, which is they have food to go, they have, you can eat there, you have to see it, but it's really cool. If you want to meet with the town manager, that's where he likes to have lots of meetings, is at Royal Blue. The mayor there too. Holland Park has its first woman mayor ever. She's one of my buddy's mom. I can remember doing sleepovers. I didn't know I was at the mayor's house. I wish she wasn't yet, but so it has a small town feel. It helps it's only 10 acres. I mean, that definitely plays a role in it being so easy to walk the loop, so to speak. But tasteful branding, the signs are good. I mean, there are few things that they do poorly here. Y'all can do the same thing here. I mean, and they didn't always have Hermes and Chanel. They used to have regular stores. As HP has gotten much more affluent, it's changed, and it's a regional destination. I mean, it really is. And but they still have some longtime tenants. The camera shop. I mean, the barber shop. There's still some local stuff. Okay, this is my hood. I live like a good drive and a chip away. I mean, we walk here, and now often without our kids. It's great, and it's not as nice, and it unfortunately has many owners. That's one of the real problems of Snyder Plaza is you have about 15 different owners. Some of them spend a lot of time on their structure, others don't. Right now, the City University Park is doing a study on how do we make it better in the public rights-of-way. What are options we could have, what decisions should we, what things were decided that were bad. Some people don't like that Bubba's has a drive-through. It's the only one in University Park. I think it's super important. I mean, those are fighting words. I mean, but that's something we'll have to talk about. Are drive-throughs good or bad? Or, I would just tell you the way to solve it is make all of them be on an SUP, and they can prove it up, and you can decide if you want that, or subsequent councils can in the future. But make them all prove it. So this is great. It works, even though it's not super nice. And maybe I have friends who'll tell you, I don't want it to be super nice. I like that it's kind of got a little grittier feel. There's a lot of different dining price points. They don't have Cafe Pacific. There's nothing on the top end. But there's a ton of stuff that's quite good in the middle, and some that's kind of quick serve. So it's much better for kids. They got yogurt place. I mean, this is, if you want to have a place where your kids can ride their bike safely, and y'all have trail access, this is a good one to go and look at. Longtime tenants, I mean, y'all, this is all on the slides. I'm not going to read them to you, but they have a grocery anchor. It's a very small Tom Thumb, maybe 12,000 square feet, more like a Trader Joe's size, and it's great. That's my store. I don't even mind going there because it's so small. I can go in and go buying and get out quickly and escape. Though, one of the great things about a grocer anchor is you see your friends, you see the principal from the school. It does serve as kind of a uniting place for the community because everybody goes to the grocery store. Okay, Inwood Village. I did not like this as a kid, almost never went there. They didn't have anything even for high schoolers. This place has done so much better, and this is one of the best restaurant regions in the Metroplex, kind of going down West Lovers. Neighborhood services started there, and this is an area with a lot of good dining, and they've really done a good job of capturing those, and they function almost as anchors. They got Rise, if you've been there, it's souffle place. It's really excellent, but be ready for like a 4-hour meal in really tiny chairs. It's just miserable. My wife likes it a lot. So another thing I think they've been really genius at doing is they've come in the back, and their office is full of home builders, designers. Mecox has moved over there, a lot of furniture stores. So they are remaking themselves and luring people away from Knox Henderson because they don't want that young professional crowd. They want to be closer to Preston Hollow and Park Cities and Lakewood and Lake Highlands. And so this is becoming a pretty interesting mix of office users, some medical, with home type stuff. I can see that kind of idea being great for you guys because you're so homeowner oriented already, and you have neighborhoods that are probably, I'm talking to staff, are revitalizing. Maybe they were homes built earlier, people are coming in, you're gonna start seeing more tear downs, but even ones, people are putting more money into the home and doing a renovation. They've lived there 15 years. I just did a renovation during COVID. 3 weeks before, we gutted the house and lived in 680 square feet of the back house. So we did COVID with no kitchen. I did a lot of grilling. It was really pretty fun, I thought. So movie theater here too. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know y'all have a movie theater. We'll have to have some direction about what you think about entertainment type uses. Trader Joe's has come in here, good store size. You know, I think that they do well in places. So this is, if you haven't been, you should see this. They have somebody that I think is a perfect fit for y'all that I've talked about, St. Bernard Sports. It functions as a anchor really for this, and they're in the back. They're such a big draw that it works, and they have a lot of like golf stuff, fitness gear. My kids actually like shopping there. You know, it's where I actually will go and do a little bit of shopping in that one store, but it's good casual clothes. I mean, it's their anchor. I see it as that. But they got breadwinners. They got a lot of good restaurant, a lot of good dining. Okay, here's one that I think is a good lesson, and I'd encourage you all to go see this. So I started on this project when my wife was pregnant with our first child, now a high schooler. They still are just working on it because they're going to get it right, not fast. Provident Realty, local, they're partners in this with Stan Kroenke, who owns the Rams and a European soccer team and the Denver Nuggets. So patient money, they're going to do this thing right. So on the far west side, this weird shaped thing is just gone under construction for sort of 0 lot line, master bedrooms downstairs, 2 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms from $950 to $2 million. And you know, you have a lot of people with big Park Cities and Preston Hollow houses, and they are going to move to this area. But it took them years to decide what the right thing to do is. And then the best piece of real estate, this corner piece, they're still holding on to. Could go office, could be retail, just not going to decide yet. And then I know this is kind of out of mix here, but they did 3 really nice multifamily buildings. This one's super nice. It mostly is geared towards 55 and older. Kind of one in the middle, maybe people in their 30s and 40s, and then this is where the fun occurs, is in the young professional one that is the least expensive. But in this kind of large scale, you need those folks, and they're by highway, it makes sense. But this is, that, you know, so when we did this, it was a super hard zoning case. It took 3 years. I mean, it was incredibly difficult. This is my dad's last big case, and he lived right by it, and that didn't help a bit. You have very expensive homes with sophisticated people, well educated, with a lot of opinions, and in the end, this was a great compromise. And they were great neighbors to work with because they were all reasonable, nice people who just wanted to make sure it's nice. And it ended up being nice. We battled because we wanted to have a Target. And so the rules on that one said we can only have 1 store at 50,000 square feet, or maybe 56 max. In the end, the biggest user is Trader Joe's. The neighbors were right. The neighbors were right that more doors were better, and the market bore that out. And in the end, the developer would tell you that that was a good thing that the recession happened, and that market worked on them, because this Trader Joe's is a very nice one. So the things I'm not saying this is our model, because in some ways it plays to the highway and it plays to people maybe more regionally, but the quality's there, and this is new enough, and they've been patient enough to do it right. And that's a hard thing to find, because most developers just say, well, I gotta get it done. I got partners. I gotta pay my bills. We couldn't build a high rise on the corner. We'll just put some more retail. Thankfully, they didn't do that. So that avoided large boxes. The parking is handled beautifully. There is a Nerf surface parking to make you think, oh, when I drive in, I might find a spot. But when you don't, you can go to very nice parking garages that are well lit and you feel safe in. Good mix of retail and residential. For you, probably that's more, we gotta think about what that mix is between retail and office or maybe hotel uses. Okay, we talked about that. I don't know if I wanna go into that because I want more questions. Maybe this is, we've got more slides on Capel, South Lake, Grapevine, and those. I think that's a place, I think it's a pretty good place to stop. I'd like to hear, I mean, what do you guys want? I mean, we just tried to give you an overview of what are things that just don't work, and what are lessons learned, and then what are things that do. I mean, in a perfect world where time and money doesn't matter, Mayor, what do? Call a play.
I personally don't want something that's shopping, okay? I think that you've got shopping everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know, are people even gonna get back to shopping? Are they gonna stay online shopping? From the very beginning, when we turned down something right after we got in office, we had a vision more of drawing people, but not for the shopping, for the experience, whatever the experience is. When Linda and I met, there's some things that Art Guild, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But something that makes people want to go to Colleyville. I don't think that shopping, let's go to Colleyville for shopping, is what people are going to do. That's just my opinion.
No?
I think that you've got all these places, South Lake Town Center, you've got all those, and like you said, I tell people that all the time, we're not South Lake. They're a wonderful place, but we are not South Lake. We don't want to be South
Right.
Lake. So when you hit on that perfectly, but there's wants something to draw people to it. I haven't put my finger on it yet.
Well, that's the hardest thing here is, and that's why, people do drive to Highland Park Village because of the quality, I think. I don't think people go to Snyder Plaza, but if you live in UP, and a lot of HP people come over, somehow the thing works really good, and one of the things is it has a lot of doors and a lot of local merchants. I'm not disagreeing. I hear what you're saying, and I worry, because I was kind of our retail guy for many years. That's how I know all the economic development people all over, I was a retail guy, and I know people at Academy and HEB. It's hard to know what's gonna happen, but we also have to figure out with something, it's not like y'all wanna do this yourselves. We have to figure out where, and my goal is to help figure out what you think the bar is and set it so high that only, and I'll use some examples here, only Ray Washburn and the Hunts that own Highland Park Village now, only they would say, oh yeah, I want the bar that high. I want it to be super nice. Or Provident Realty, that we don't have to do it all right now. We'll do a part now and make people come familiar with it, and then we'll do more later as the market changes. So that's my only goal is we do the thing the right way.
Well, one of the things we had talked about was that helps us quickly weed out the types of folks that are gonna be wasting your time, that aren't gonna live up to the quality expectations, and it filters that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, our goal, so sort of looking at next steps, our goal is at the end that you guys pass an ordinance and zoning that controls all those things, and that there's streetscape design, there's sign regulations, that all those things are there so that it makes it really easy for management to say, oh yeah, here's the ordinance. It's all online. We have a dedicated website to it. If you have questions, get back to us. And I told staff this, I don't think, Herb Weitzman and my dad are good friends. I've known Herb for a million years. He has a lot of very good shopping centers, nice ones, reputable, clean. He is not gonna develop this the way you want. because he just isn't. I mean, that's just not what he does. He's gonna do an A- every time, or a B+. Y'all want something, I believe, that's truly unique, and it's okay that you don't know what that is. I think that's what this exploration is.
Right.
Is, what is it?
Right, that's the key. When I keep hearing shopping, 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 it's just not what I'm feeling. What does anybody
I
else
like
feel?
the idea of a resort, like destination, vacation type experience,
Yes.
things to do, bocce ball.
And then
You
if
take
you
your
throw
kids or
some
not
of
take
those
your
stores
kids.
in there,
Right,
that's
some
Right.
stores, but not destination, like.
Right.
Right.
I kind of think of it as, this is my vision, everybody else has their own, of course. I think of 30A.
No, yeah, sure,
Roll down 30A,
yeah.
it's got some nice retail shops with elevations like South Lake Town Center, the elevations. But
Where's this,
also
Bob?
have,
Florida.
Florida,
Oh,
have some corner anchors, restaurants that are really nice. Utilizing that creek that's in there, bridges over, bridges out, one way in, circle swapping, or one way out on the opposite end, with a nice big park over the side, anchor restaurants in the middle, with another park in the center of it. That's just, I kind of drew it out a while.
I saw,
But something that has kind of a South Lake, Grapevine, 30A, bridges mix, that's what I think would look kind of cool.
that's very cool, I think, too. I agree with all that. And I think they've done some things, we've talked about, we'll have to talk at some time about interim uses. You know, you can't, we don't wanna just sit there either. But, you know, could you do, food trucks, as an interim land use? Some of y'all are all old enough, you'll remember, do you remember when West Village had Hank Haney's driving range there?
oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, and now, you know, Mutt's, now there's a bar. I don't know if it's the right fix, I know we're not looking at bars, but I think it's an innovative way to land bank something, is to have, and it's. You know, I know, Gary- Gary will be-
We can rename it.
Ours is not in there.
Actually,
Yes,
they sell
effort.
memberships. They, you know, so I just think that it's very clever. I drove by in, I guess DeSoto yesterday, and they had an old grocery anchor. I didn't look at it that closely, but I did pull in, and they, you know, probably built in the 70s, and they had pulled up a bunch of their parking and put in a bocce court, and then had 4 different permanent food trucks there. And I just thought, that is a great way to revitalize an aging shopping center.
Where was
In DeSoto on Beltline. I can send staff where it is. I took a few pictures. I just thought, that's a great idea.
And I
Whether-
think maybe entertainment, like
Yeah.
live music.
I think that's something
Well,
very.
we'll have to, so Katy Trail Ice House is one of, those are all Holland Park
Yes.
guys like me. That's one of my favorite places, and I've made a lot of money on adjacency issues about noise. So, you know, we have to figure out how to do something that's right, but that is not rife with everybody being upset. And so, because it's not, they don't do live music at Ice House, but people are having a good time and they talk. Sometimes when people drink, they talk more and louder. I found this.
Exactly.
So I like that. The whole key is activity. You know, like I know when they opened Truck Yard on Lower Greenville, have you seen it? It's fun. They have, it's sort of outdoor. It's sort of like Ice House, and you sit in the back of an old pickup trucks and stuff, and it's great. There's this rodeo goat. They have one that's and he was a baseball teammate of mine that he calls it white trash top golf. But it's a fun concept. The key is to make people want to go. 30A is a great example of, it makes you want to go, but of course they don't do much in the winter. And they have all those tourists. I mean, the question is, I think for it to work though, developers, and you're gonna have to have one, owners, however you see it, it's you guys that are gonna go there, and that you have to go there all the time, and that your friends have to go there all the time. I mean, I go to Steiner Plaza, I mean, I'm kinda like Eamon Carter, I'm gonna take a sandwich when I go to Dallas. And because, so I very purposefully shop in University Park at that Tom Thumb, and I try to go to Banditos at least once a week. I meet, you know, if I'm gonna meet a buddy to have a drink, I do it up there. So, because it's a small town. I mean, I choose to live in the park cities because, you know, I grew up in a small town. This is the same thing. That's why we like coming over here to play ball and go to dance things. It doesn't seem like we're in generic Plano or Garland or whatever it is. Y'all have, I mean, your logo, where is it? It really hits on it. You got the convenience of, I can get to the airport and it's still rural. I mean, people still have big lots here.
Yep.
You know, I've looked at your subdivisions so admiringly, because, you know, we have big houses and very
Shoulder to
tiny
shoulder.
lots. And we don't necessarily like that. I mean, that's just the way that it
Like the front
is.
yard.
But we need, and I invite you all to call and we can have these discussions, or I'd love to meet you and go look at you can do the ones right there in under an hour. You can do Highland Park Village, and Preston Hollow. You can all do all of those very, very quickly. And just make a list of, what do you like? There's not a right answer. And I also want to know what you didn't like. I mean, because there are some things, it's hard to find much fault with Highland Park Village, but they're paying crazy rent. That's not likely to, Aramaze doesn't need another store. They moved out of North Park to the Highland Park Village. And some of that is, they've done a wonderful job there. But the quality, I think that's really what this should be an exercise for all of us in is, whatever we do, it ought to be the best one.
Yeah.
Where that I'm willing to come over here because it's cool.
Right, that's exactly what we're
yeah,
wanting.
that's-
Right.
That's what I'm wanting.
And our town is actually, I'm gonna brag on us a little bit, we're pretty athletic. Our demographics are changing to where they're younger. A lot of kids are falling, growing up, they're biking. That's what they do around here. They don't, they're not the stay-at-home kids, they're the run-around kids. And this is something, that's why I said the 38 part. If you drive around Colleyville, you'll see 38 on a lot of cars. It's just a draw. It's something that's athletic to go do, to get you out to that park, or to do a little bit of shopping where you can walk it, and then have a nice restaurant that would anchor on maybe the corners and the centers and the park and the inside and the far end. The creek, like I say, and I know I'm repeating myself, that creek is gonna be a draw, really is, especially with an old wooden bridge over it, another one on the outside. If we can learn, just back it up.
I'm hearing a lot of kind of active lifestyle focused comments
sure.
from you guys.
And I think that your comment, Dallas, about how you come out here for baseball or dance is really well made too. Like, we do need things that people can go stop and get something to eat,
Right.
like
Right.
activities between your games, your dance.
Well, the domain does a really good job of purposefully working with these tournament organizers so that you're getting emails about, and we've been there for dance and for basketball. So we're a basketball first family. I want to make that really clear. But it's really interesting that we've seen it with the dance that they'll recommend, Zoe's, these other places. You get an email for a boys basketball team, it's gonna tell you where you can get hamburgers. I'm always like, where's the other list? They have pretty decent food on the girls' list. But the domain does a great job, and they have different price points. I think a hotel could be a good mix here. If you come to UP, go look at Hotel Lumen. It's on Hillcrest, right across from SMU. Before COVID, it had the highest occupancy rate of any hotel in the Southwest. Now it has a really nice restaurant. And a bar with it that some people don't eat, but it's so you get a lot of local people who will go there, and they do capture the SMU crowd. But there's a lot of competition for that. But it's a very small boutique hotel. That's a good example of something that could work here. That doesn't cater to everybody that's coming to play in a baseball tournament. But some families would opt for that, and you get some weekend stays. So. I've thought more about, we talked with staff about, is hotel a possibility? You just have to have somebody that wants to run a small hotel that's highly profitable.
How about this, and then this is just a suggestion, how about give us all the map or a drawing of that land, the way it lays out? Let us all put our idea down on it, just. so you
Pencil it
can- Yeah, pencil it out.
Okay.
Say, this is what we'd like, write down
Right.
notes at the
Great.
bottom of what we think that would be good, and that would kinda give us, because we're gonna just throw things out there left and right, but this would kinda give us consensus.
Good
So
idea.
we want to get some comments. I'd like y'all all to call too, and so we have time to talk. And if you make the tour, we're going to come back and do a second show, sort of about this, and then I'm going to get with staff with some architecture firm, really largely based on, and it may not be based on what I'm hearing tonight. It might be more of a landscape architect who does a lot of active outdoor kind of things. They would come up with several different plans, maybe 2 to 5 plans that then they show you. Not that I don't think you drawing them would be helpful, it would be to me.
It just-
I couldn't draw one, that's not my skill set. I'm good at looking at stuff and knowing, does it work or not work, theoretically, but
Mine's
either
just
way,
give the
that's
idea.
sort of just pedagogically, that's what we had thought about, is a couple of discussions. Then we go back and do more work and come back with, you know, a architect, landscape architect, some design professional in tow, and, because we'll need that at the end. The final part has to be codified with ordinance, words, good narrative, and a vision statement that warns off people but attracts other ones, and then pictures and exhibits that do the same thing. That, you know, Ray Washburn would be like, oh, great, if I do the same as I've done on these other projects, we could be partners. That's great. We do not want any other shopping center. And I get the point, and I don't know, and I don't know what to say other than shopping center. You want an experience center. The way that going to downtown Neiman's is an experience.
Experience
So-
it.
Experience center,
This
right.
becomes, you know, like a center and everything, as far as the city's role, is there a point that we pass this over to the private sector, or what? I'm just
That's your decision. I mean,
Or-
I,
Right, I just didn't know how
I-
deep are we getting into this?
so I think, I'm gonna be really careful here, and I may be calling the wrong play, but
Okay.
I think it'll be hard to find somebody that wants to do this unless they own it. I mean, that's just, it's hard to finance. I mean, and even if you ground lease it to them for a long time, that's just harder and harder to do. But you could own parts of it, and you certainly should regulate it. And hey, I'm all for you in the ordinance requiring, you can't require every land use, but anything that's marginal ought to come to you guys. I think it should be like the Las Colinas Association. You gotta go to the Las Colinas Association, deal with those jokers before you deal with the city council. Sometimes you have to go to DCURD, the Dallas County Urban Reclamation District. If you're dealing with the water area, you gotta go see them first, then you gotta go to the Las Colinas Association, then you gotta go to P&Z and then the council. It's a consultant's dream. I love it. I cannot tell you, I love it. It's super wonderful. And their schedules don't take into account, it takes forever, it's a great assignment. It's like dealing with the city of Austin.
So Dallas, will you skip ahead to your slide
Yeah.
because the what works? Because that was kind of a good summary of a lot of what we've talked about tonight. And I guess, there you go.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our opinion. You know, this is everybody kind of in the office. Our president of the company, Carl Crawley's not here, but he was the chief planner at the city of Dallas. He's been at our place 25 years. You know, he and I have worked on a lot of things that, boy, they sure look good on paper, these lifestyle centers, and they just haven't panned out. I mean, I was telling staff, there's a really nice one in Cedar Hill. The quality is there. You drive in and you're very hopeful, but when you hit it, it just hadn't done well. They don't have good, the tenant mix is not good, they don't have good restaurants, and it's not for lack of quality. That's the thing that's sort of scary about it. And I was out there yesterday and drove it again, trying to figure out where went wrong. Some of it's just demographics, is they just don't have enough disposable income. So these are things that I think, Mayor.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I think this is a good list, and this is a good approach to have, and we may, if you think of other things, to have a list that we begin to use to check anything we're talking about against that criteria, kind of our criteria list, you know, if we want to accomplish that.
Yeah, having criteria generally works well for us.
Huh?
Having criteria generally works well for us.
Yes, yeah.
And so Dallas made the point that today's discussion was really intended to, you know, talk about some of the experiences of what has worked and what hasn't, and get our brains all thinking in those directions, give you all an opportunity to go home and sleep on it with all this new information and really chew on it and think about what we've discussed. And if you want to take some driving tours over the next week or two, you know, do that. And then let's all come back together at another work session in another couple of weeks or next month or whenever, and say, okay, I've thought about it, here's some more feedback. And then based on that more refined feedback that you've had a chance to think some more about, then we can bring on board that next step of starting to put some more depth to some conceptual plans. And then ultimately, as Dallas mentioned, the final goal would be, you know, either having, you know, the regulations from the city ordinance level and then kind of the marketing material with brochures and vision and imagery of what we want. So if that general kind of roadmap for the steps ahead sounds okay to everybody, we'll proceed in that manner.
What
Is
is
this
the
helpful?
Yeah.
Would you say we were mostly on target? Okay, I just tried to approach it similar to what, if I would, I mean, I really did. Would this go over with a group of UP PTA moms? That was when I was doing this. I was like, and I saw nodding. Guys, sorry, we're just not good. We're not in the right demographic. But that doesn't mean we can't get ourselves that way.
He's gonna disagree with you.
You know, no, it's just, you can be, I just have to tell myself, okay, why, I have to think not about what Dallas likes to buy. I like to go to the GGA store. I mean, that's not a fit here. I just have to set it aside and think like most people do, and as elected officials, I know that's what you guys do. Is what will work for most citizens that in 2040, you know, kids grow up in this community and they just think about this. I mean, you know.
I'd like to say one thing also is that I work in UP, HP, all that in that area, and it's great. And it's a lot of high-end money, which is great too. But I don't want the draw to be exactly always high-end. We gotta have
Totally
people
agree.
that walk down Grapevine streets that probably can go into a trinket shop. I want those people to come too, not to feel like, well,
Sure.
too out of my class. And so I'm not dishing you on
No.
those, but I'm just saying the concept is cool. But having those, you know, I'd like it a little more friendlier. Because when I go into UP and HP, sometimes I kind of, you know.
We do that a little. I don't think that's, it has changed. I still think of it as a small town. Fewer and fewer, we have more move-ins too.
Sure, yeah.
I think Steiner Plaza works though, because there are places that you can go and get lunch for, you know, $10. So, but you also can spend, you know, I mean, like East Hampton, they'd be a good fit here, I know. But you're looking at $12 or $16 for lunch. I mean, it's just, restaurants are hard. I mean, that's gonna be a hard puzzle for us to fix, and we should not fixate on it. I mean, that's really kind of the developer's role, but I hear you. We want something that's approachable, and we've lost a little bit of that.
Yeah, you guys like, would need a Winewood or something like that, that would make that middle class feel like, hey, you know, a little higher on the middle.
We can talk offline. I
Oh,
don't
man,
disagree
I'm
with
with
you. I grew up there. I'm still a small town guy. I think it's nuts. We have soft kids now in sports too, that their parents are bringing them towels in the dugout. It's too hot. It's like, it's Texas. I look at my kid and I just tell him I was like, sweat. You know, I mean, you know, the other team can do this. Be tough. Okay, again, I'm happy. I brought cards. I'll give each one of you that. Really, if you come over, I'd be happy to meet you up there and tell you what I think works about those. And if you go to that Preston Hollow Village, that's a really good one because you can really see they didn't try and do it all at one time, and that's pretty unusual for
That's where the old
developers.
Troy Aikman Ford place was, isn't it? On Walnut Hill,
No,
or
it's the northwest corner,
75.
of 75 and Walnut Hill. Aikman was further up. That was our project
Up on
too.
that, yeah, up on that.
It's amazing that TxDOT gave him a special curb cut. It took about 2 minutes. I took him to a meeting and we got that all solved.
It's gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Appreciate
comments,
it. You
absolutely.
bet.
Thank y'all.
You mean money talks?
So much.
So do you think about 30 days?
I
Or the
think they just
name.
want an autograph.
Mayor,
the names.
do you think about 30 days would
The
be
name,
an
but
appropriate time to give everybody
knew
some
money was
chance
behind
to
Yes.
think about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Enough time? so-
No more
Oh,
than
thank you.
You'll see that at council.
We'll get you
Yeah,
We'll
no,
use
I'll
the
bring
guys
that.
mapping.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll plan about 30 days out for another work session discussion.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 2, which is talking about the tax rate, and Kyle's back. Very good.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. There you go.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you said, tonight we'll be focusing on our tax rate. I do have some other budget slides, but we're going to focus mostly on our tax rate tonight. So just to summarize kind of where we landed last meeting, this is a shortened version of how we calculate our known revenue rate. The top figure, total taxable value, it includes all properties that have been certified and finalized out. It also includes a very crucial assumption of the properties that are currently in the appeals process. They have long assumed that we will retain 70% of that value. Usually, the amount of properties in that process at this stage in the game are not that many. We have about 826 currently, which is significantly higher. So in total, as we do the math,
Question.
and I will,
So-
yes, sir.
826 that are still being challenged?
I'm not sure how many of them, as of July.
Oh,
So I
okay.
don't know how many of them have been settled yet.
Will we have more information before we make the decision?
I would hope so, but to be honest, it's difficult getting much information from at this point. I think a lot of people are asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I
hadn't even got
understand.
our dates set for ours yet.
Yeah. So what you said was about the, in that total taxable value of the prostate property, it only includes 70% of that property's value.
That's correct.
Which is huge.
Yes, sir.
And so,
Very few reductions, in my opinion.
well, I
gonna
mean,
be
in the end.
30%.
You look at history. So history,
I know.
you guys talked to, Jeff lost somebody.
90 to
did
95%.
90 to 95% versus 70.
Right.
So it's a huge.
That's my reaction too.
difference.
Yep.
Well, and that's really the key to what's been going on here. So again, I won't walk us through the math, but the new revenue
So bottom line, that number at top is suppressed artificially.
significantly suppressed, yes, sir. So as we all know, this leads to a new revenue rate. It's about 0.3 of a penny higher than our current rate. So the data discrepancy this came with, though, is the average home values. So we saw our net taxable value with their information go down about 0.8%, but the average single-family residential value went up 1.7%. That doesn't wash.
Doesn't make sense.
What happens here is in the values that we just talked about, they include that 70% figure, which, as the mayor said, suppresses it. For the average single-family residential values, they don't count those at all. So you've got 826 properties that just aren't factoring into that average. It's just everything that's certified.
Wow.
So in order to make that a true apples-to-apples figure,
Crazy.
you've got to take a look at all the 800 and so on properties, take their taxable value that they initially were given, take 70% of it, and then average that in with everything else to see if that sort of makes more sense. And so that's what we did. And when that happened, right at the bottom there, the average single-family residential home went down, not quite as much as the value did, but it certainly went in the correct direction that would follow with the logic that we've been given.
Yeah.
1 to 8%.
So, we solved the math problem. That was easy. It begs the question, why 70%? And does that make sense? And of course, I think we're all in agreement that it does not. So let me show you just how much the
Talk
difference.
about that for a second. Why do they do 70%? And they have done 70% for a long time, right? Why do they do that? Because that makes the taxing entities more money.
Exactly.
Because
Sure
in
does.
reality, that artificially suppresses the asset.
Yep.
Instead of tax rate that's higher and it looks good theoretically on paper.
Yep. But
And
it's
then in
wrong.
the end, you get more
They
money.
get the
That's
money
exactly
anyway.
what I was
Because in
thinking.
reality, it's not 70, it's 90 or 95.
That's right.
Another
You
20%.
get taxed on that money that they excluded in the asset value. So all the big guys love that.
Absolutely.
Because they're making money doing it.
Yep.
And we're different. We want to be transparent, honest.
In their defense, TAD representatives stated that they had brought forth a recommendation to
Yeah.
change that in the past,
Yeah.
and the member organizations voted it down.
Yeah,
Of
and
course.
that's why I say the big guys. The
That's
big guys got all the votes. They
Exactly.
didn't want to do it. They wanted it left like it was.
Yeah. And by the way, there's
Surprise.
politics going on right now.
Yes.
They're taking 2 people off of the board.
We'll talk about that
I
after a while.
I understand, we don't have to talk to it now, but
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
So for our process, this go-around, this is the difference an assumption makes.
Yeah.
So these both show basically the same effect of what's happening. The graph on the left, so I ran different percentages for that assumption.
Jeez.
And I'm comparing, this is comparing what the rate would be based on what our current rate is. So, 70%, we have a rate that's 0.3 of a penny higher. The break-even point where our current rate would be calculated is that adjusted new revenue rate is about 79%.
Cal,
That's
just
still
clarification,
Oh,
you're talking
yes,
about
sir.
the effective rate.
Yes.
Right, so the effective rate is what he's talking about.
Right.
Right.
quote-unquote, no new tax rate.
Yes. And so you can see that kind of as we go towards what I would say is a more appropriate figure, obviously we move in the right direction for us. The graph on the right shows the same thing, it just shows you the total rate. And so when I
think 85 is where we ought to be.
yes, sir, you
80 or 85.
read my mind. I spoke with the chief appraiser, and he said when they last brought this forward, they recommended 85% is what they wanted to do. Of course, it was voted down.
Yeah.
So if we look at 85%, that's the one where staff is kind of landed on as well. Let me show you how that compares here. So I'm comparing a new adjusted calculation with FY20. So if we factor in 85%, our taxable values went up 2.2%. Our ceilings still went up considerably, but net taxable value, we gained 1.3%. And that flows down to the bottom, take the TIF out, and we're still positive by 1.2%. If we take a look at the rate that would, justify the revenue and then the average values that would flow through to, you're also looking at an average value increase of about 1.2%. So those figures work out a lot better. The average values I've calculated there incorporate that adjustment where we put the percentage of those protest properties in. So those are going to differ from what TAD gave us. So underneath this scenario, with what I would say is a more pure calculation, you would see an increase of maybe $7 per average tax bill, as opposed to the $16 that the other calculation weighed in at. So this is the slide that.
So what's that get us down to?
Right. This slide takes everything that TAD gave us and just puts it there. So the average value came exactly from TAD, that 562,115.
So at 80% it'd be $12.
So we are, so everything flows through, and that would be an approximate increase on the tax bill of potentially $15. And all of that is taking our exempt property loss and sort of spreading around our existing properties. So just to sum, the original calculation would have increased around $50 annually. The adjusted calculation that we think is a little more fair is going to be more like $15. So we're saving average homeowner about $35 annually. And our
current rate is 306,807.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
304, 365.
New rate, if we did this, would be 304,365.
Yep.
So, yeah, and so.
That's wonderful, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to me that they give us this number that's not consistent with how they do the total
Yeah,
asset.
It makes no sense.
And I think it's necessary that we do this because it's important that we maintain our principle with our citizens. And even if we pass the no new revenue rate, we're maintaining our principles, but the citizens would be.
It's not fair to
Fooled.
them.
They would look at this and say, wow, the value went
Sure.
up and my tax went up, which is inconsistent. They would have a right to say that, and we shouldn't put ourselves there. So
Well,
we just arbitrarily lower it to make it come out
Yeah,
right.
over half of the appraisals did not go up.
It's a big
Yeah.
fact.
But,
That's what I've been told.
well, but our asset value went up. So think about this. All these asset values, I still don't buy into what's TAD done, because I think they lowball us.
Sure.
But that's okay, and why do I say that? I say that because these numbers that TAD is supposed to be doing is all 2019 numbers. End of December 2019. Guess what? Economy's gangbusters,
It's going
everything's going
everywhere.
up like nuts. I don't believe for a second property values have gone down.
That's right.
I think they went up. I think they went up more than they're
Still going up.
reflecting. So there's things going on. There's many nuances. Me and Jerry
All
and
over
Kyle
the
have
place.
talked a lot about this. There's a lot of nuances that go on behind the scenes that in fact are advantageous to somebody, typically a taxing entity.
Exactly.
And it's difficult to think through, and citizens that don't deal with this every day have no prayer. All they see is that table.
That's all they.
and their tax bill.
That's it.
And so, I don't want to be in a bad situation when they don't believe us, because maintaining trust with them is critical.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I don't even care if it's that, me and Jared were playing around with a .0015 or something. We did that, Kyle was in there too, we did that coming at it two different ways, but basically it was this
I
analysis.
love that analysis.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So that's certainly math that we can follow year after year.
Yeah, no, so we can explain it.
Absolutely.
And so basically, bottom line, we went into detail, we understood it, we went above and beyond just to make sure you guys were okay.
So this is the last slide I had for property tax before kind of just running through the other budget information. Is there anything else we want to discuss about this before moving on?
No, I think that's,
This was a key thing to
I
me.
love
That
it.
was a
Really
big issue to me.
helpful
That was it
what you
right
did.
there.
me too.
Awesome.
Let's just hope it don't crash after this, the economy. We'll just have to, I'm just
Well,
playing for
I
the
mean,
future. I
whether
hope
it
it keeps
does or
rolling.
not, that's the future.
We
Yeah,
got
no,
it.
I know.
Yeah.
But you
I
could
know,
have
but-
a situation where next year you have exemptions continue to rise.
And
You could
values
also
drop.
have a situation next year where you have more appeals like we had this year. This year was a huge growth in the number of appeals. You could have even more next year.
Sure.
All of those factors can come into play when you're calculating the rate, and so we could
But
have a
we can
situation again next
Yeah,
year
but-
where we have
And we
to.
can explain that.
But it doesn't bother me one iota, and I want people that may be watching those video to hear this. If property values, economy crashes, property values really do go down, no new revenue rate is gonna go up.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
okay, and we
Sure.
would pass it because we're maintaining revenue.
Absolutely.
But in this case, we're in this funny little area where they made some assumptions that we don't
No, I
believe are
totally
true. In
agree.
fact, that the Jeff Law himself saying it's not gonna happen that way. Why should we follow it?
It's
then? We
crazy.
shouldn't.
And that's
It's
why,
crazy.
yeah, right, and that's why I was saying, if something was to happen, we would explain it and
Yeah.
show you why. And then, because some people just look at the number, they don't realize the,
No, I guarantee
the
you.
the mechanism in it.
We
So
always
that's
publish
why-
this table. That's what they're gonna see.
Yeah,
But you've had two things going on
Yeah.
over the last couple of years. One is that your number of exemptions have gone up 15% on average over the last 5 years, each year.
Yeah.
So that's a huge growth in the number of exemptions.
Sure is.
So that tax burden then is spread amongst all the other taxpayers through their valuation. And at the same time, you've had now appeals grow dramatically. And so that's both of those factors, hit you hard
almost 10%
this
of
year. And so it's possible that trend could be, unique in the exemptions, where it was a one-year anomaly, and unique in the sense that your exemptions have finally leveled off and the growth is discontinued. But it's also possible that those exemptions don't go away now. They're gonna stay at that high plateau
Yeah.
and could continue to grow. And it's also possible you could have a commonality where people appeal their tax every year, their
But the
valuation.
only one question I'd have in that explanation is, I think our exemptions went down from 19% to 5%. Not an insignificant number.
Still a
Well,
growth
the
though.
increase,
Uh,
yeah.
It grew
Still an
5%.
increase.
It grew 5%, but it grew 19% last year. So,
Yes.
that, and by the way, we bought some land, we took off, some money
That's
out
right.
of the
Yes.
pool
We're taking more.
ourselves. That was
We're
in that
taking more
tax,
next year.
it's in
Yes.
that one of those numbers
That's
he had
right.
up there. We did that. We
Yes.
chose to do that. But the 70%, the number of protests went up like crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
And that 70% is the big gorilla in the room.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
But the appeal anomaly can be 1 year, like you're saying, it's
Yeah.
very unique this year. The exemptions, though, tend to be a constant that is also increasing.
Oh, yeah.
Albeit it slowed this year,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it declines. The plateau is set, so it's high.
Yeah, it raises.
Whereas on the exemptions,
It's
you
gonna
may have a
continue.
unique situation where this year they were extraordinary.
What it
They're
all
going
has to do with what are property values gonna do? And I just personally, last year was a great year, property values went up, period. Dallas is still saying our property values are going up in the
They
paper
are.
today. Even with all this, their property values went up more than ours. Do you believe that? No, I don't believe that. So why is, there's something a little funny about this. But if it really does go down, if economy crashes, so be it. The no new revenue rate computation will take care of
I
that.
think those numbers are gonna actually stick the same because of leadership that's at TAD and the way they've done in the past. People are really paying attention to what's going on. I almost see that in my opinion, that there might be a backwards trend, just a little bit, just to show some confidence. back into the association, but still, you're working with 70
Well,
versus
there's
the
a lot
90.
of pressure this year because of COVID and the economy
They
my
want more
personal
money.
opinion, okay, just opinion, to knock things back a little bit by various means to try to cover that, so that the taxing entities in the end actually get a little more money.
Exactly.
Without
100%.
raising the tax rate. I mean, leave the tax rate the same, they're gonna get more money.
Oh, absolutely. Always.
Same old story.
That's right.
Different game. Same game.
Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely.
That was good. Yes.
So I've incorporated the 85% recommendation or projections. The other major thing I changed was after sales tax came in this last week, I felt very silly coming up here every day and projecting a flat, so.
You said you,
I'm-
silly?
It's showing the sales tax flat.
Yeah.
It's a fine place to start, but it just kind of got ridiculous. So I've actually included about a 6% increase projected for this year end. And that in and of itself is still pretty conservative because right now we're at almost 8.5%.
Sure.
What are we
So-
doing with the 16 days of I'm sorry, I probably jumped way ahead of you,
That's okay.
of the days, the fund balance.
Fund balance, we changed it slightly because it was, the way it was represented before, could be confusing to someone to look at it quickly. Kyle, you can explain or I can explain.
That's
either
cool.
way. The issue was, the way it was presented before, you have a problem in that you've accumulated a lot of, it's a good problem.
Yeah.
A lot of fund balance, that at some point you want to transfer it to your capital fund.
Sure.
And, get back in line with your policy. The way it was displayed before, it showed the fund balance transfer coming out as part of the projected budget, which implies, it looks like a deficit, because you're removing funds from one location, moving to another. And so what we did here is we kind of broke it out and said, no, it's a separate action.
Right.
But it is a question that will be an interesting one for you, because in your audit, it will show as a reduction in fund balance, which will then show up as a positive transfer somewhere else, but will look like a fund balance deficit, which is really, you're moving money out of your fund balance.
But
Yeah.
they should still see that as a positive in a way, even though they might see that a little negative, they'll see that as a positive. We're 90 over, 90
Yes.
plus, and so they should see that.
Yes. And
Very well.
don't get me wrong, you're gonna have your potential, your likely $1.2 million surplus, plus your 1.4 million CARES Act, quote-unquote, surplus transferring through, so that's 2.6. But what I'm saying is, if then you transfer out 3.6 of fund balance, you then have, if it's the way it's represented, it comes across as a deficit of $1 million, which in a time when you're transferring so much excess, it comes across as confusing.
Yeah, but I just thought it'd be easily explained to them because,
Yes.
yeah,
I'm just, the visuals are what I'm trying to explain.
yeah, I'm with you, I'm with you.
So, 2.8, contribution to CLP projects, 2.89, 2.9, baby.
Yes, sir. That's our normal 1.5 million plus the CARES Act that we received.
One question, Jerry, we have taken care of, or will have taken care of the 1.5, right, towards COVID?
That's in the CARES Act money, and what he's showing is.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking, we got the money,
Yes,
we have to put it to COVID, we've done that?
we've already done that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, and we used it for expense related to first responders.
I understand.
And so, for us now, what happens is, we have a revenue source that basically paid for a budgeted expenditure.
I know.
So it results in a surplus, but it's,
Right.
but it's additional surplus. And so we've got our operating surplus that we already were gonna have, the 1.2 to 1.5. We've now got the CARES Act 1.4, and then the separate conversation is the fund balance transfer.
I know.
And all I'm saying is, it seems confusing to have all of this positive transfer, and then the way it represents as a potential deficit, wipe it all out and have to explain that conversation. And so I just wanted to caution that, there's different ways to look at it, there are different ways to talk about it. And so the fund balance transfer may or may not be something you want to do. It's totally up to you, but it's worthy of a great deal of conversation as to how we manage it.
So we're talking about informally 1.2 surplus.
1.2 to 1.5, college spends 1.5.
Yeah, that's it, it's a
There's a
definitely.
little more, there's a little more there you really kind of expect to come in.
Well, if you, yeah, and of course, and not only on the revenue side, but on the expenditure side, we see it both ways. We
Yes,
see
right.
revenues beating expectations, and we see expenditures under expectations.
It's all good news. I mean, it's
Yes,
good
it is.
news. And, yeah, well, he didn't want to call it 1.4
I know.
surplus. But
I wasn't,
it kind of.
I don't
It
want to
is.
call it
But I know, I
surplus.
understand.
It is
is.
money that,
But
money
it
that
is
we.
surplus, but it's the same thing as calling a transfer out of the
No, no,
fund balance a deficit.
Yeah, I agree
The
with
right
you.
term, but wrong
Sure.
Bottom
explanation.
line, you got that much money left. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
one
did
thing,
everything you're supposed to.
yeah, one thing I saw announced, and I don't remember talking about it in here, was having respirators. We now have a new respirators in all of our ambulances, is that correct?
So we have,
I thought I saw that.
We bought
oh,
some.
about ventilators,
We bought those a while back.
three ventilators.
Or ventilator, I used the wrong term.
Yes.
I'm sorry. 3 ventilators, which, brand new ventilators, which is wonderful. Because as I understand, there's some new ways to use the ventilators, right? That is not, they don't turn them on full blast.
No,
Yeah.
not going into a long discussion.
No, I don't want to get to it now. But I'm very, very, very pleased to know that we have state-of-the-art equipment that just helps all the things we're doing anyway to help our residents. It's amazing. Very blessed, that's for sure.
But I had a slide designated for this, but we
Oh,
opened it.
go back one. So projection includes less than non-new roofs.
Yes, sir, that should say, strike that out, or less than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Until just a minute ago, and I was like, oh, go past the slide.
Less than, yeah.
Yes, sir. So moving on to our utility fund, we don't really have any changes here. Our budget's increasing from 17.5 to 17.9 million. Majority of that comes from assumptions with the Trinity River Authority costs. Again, we actively assume we're going to receive 450,000, our true up, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we're going to actively plan to try and move that over for capital. Our direct costs are increasing by about $218,000 budget to budget. And that's primarily from reclassification of a few positions that were primarily working in utilities but paid for by the general fund, and some of those merit increases that we're budgeting for as well. Now, in order to fund the budget, here we would have to look at some increases.
Now, back up real quick.
Yes, sir.
What's your projected end of year surplus for the fund?
Oh, for this fund?
For the
I
current
have to be honest, I've
20.
been so focused on general fund, I don't have a hard projection I care to throw out.
You want to guess?
Um,
Saying about $1 million?
Yeah, I would say $1 million, a little plus or minus, is probably about what we usually see. I should learn to always have that number handy for you. In order to fund the budget, we have to look at some increases to our base rates. The water rate would increase from anywhere between 12 cents to $1.19 per bill. Wastewater, about $1.23 per bill. The CIP rate is the one we still have to discuss. The rates I plugged in are the ones that came from that model that we talked about. So of course, those are up in the air, but the majority of our customers are at a 1-inch meter or less, so they would have that smaller increase.
One item on, if you go back one slide, is it possible to break out the TRA numbers so that they don't cloud this? I know you've done that separately.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if it would be a good idea to show that without the TRA in there.
Right.
So that we would see where we are.
Yes.
Is that a bad?
No, the only caveat is you want to then include a expenditure for water loss. Because you have to assume there'll be a water loss component that you have to account for.
Of course, I understand that.
But otherwise, yeah. you do that.
Yeah. I just think it would be easier for us to understand it. That's all.
We didn't have any changes to the drainage fund. The major change that will happen is when you decide on the rates, then of course we'll update this and our CIP as well, and that'll flow through. One fund we haven't actually seen a breakout for is our hotel tax fund. Since we're sort of turning this into more or less an operating fund whenever we can, I'm going to start reporting on it more regularly. So for now, you can see kind of how we've used it in the past. It's been mostly one-off expenses, always related to special events, and that's not a bad way to use this fund. But there are some more efficiencies we can pull from it. So next year, right now we're planning on funding concerts in the plaza as our promotion of the arts portion. That's one of the 7 things that this can be used to fund. We do have an expense of about $20,000 for potential branding or economic development, promoting the community costs. We haven't completely identified something hard and fast, but that's something we want to put aside money for. Colleyville promotion and advertising would include one position, the community relations specialist, as well as general promotional items, you know, the hats and things that we give out and sell at our events.
That's not a new position, that's a reallocation
Yes,
of
sir,
existing.
reallocation. And then also we are funding portions of the Colleyville Center staff out of here. Again, those are not new positions, they're reallocations of existing positions. I've very conservatively estimated the revenue on FY20, projected in FY20, a pretty significant decrease. We just had some kind of coming slower a little bit to the city, so I just want to make sure we have a conservative estimate there, but I think we're going to be just fine.
Hey, Kyle, before you leave that slide, just if you notice under the projected 2020, the fund balance of $500,000 basically.
Right.
That's pretty impressive that a single hotel has generated that much income.
Good.
And again, that's assuming spending every year, so obviously it's generated probably closer to $1 million. And it's pretty amazing for one hotel over 4 years.
It's great.
Yeah, so that's one reason I think we've got plenty of space out there, figuring out a way to get a unique boutique hotel would be nice.
Could be
That'd
desirable.
fun, you know.
Sure would.
And the reason we started using this fund more is because that very argument about the use of hot funds has been around since it was first talked about. And it has very specific uses. We want to be using it so that we can justify its existence.
Absolutely. Is there a reason that the Colleyville Center expenses almost double for next year, then it goes back down?
Yes, we have some non-recurring capital improvements that we moved over there as well. I'm sorry, I don't have the list of those, but I can be prepared with those next time.
No, that's okay.
Just a quick summary by fund. All of our funds are operationally balanced. We do have some that we're eating into our fund balance as a plan, but from an operational, ongoing revenue to ongoing expenses standpoint, we're looking good across the board. So, quick key accomplishments that we're proposing here. Of course, first, making sure we modify our tax calculations to do right by our taxpayers. Reducing that no new revenue rate, so we're actually proposing lower than that. General fund is well balanced for our 5-year projection. We do assume, I guess, the no new revenue rate or lower if we need to do that as well for at least 21 and 22, but we're going to take that any year that we can. Demonstrating responsible fiscal management, no cuts to service levels. We're moving around expenditures with appropriate funding sources. That's something we're going to continue to do, especially if sales tax continues on this. We can continue to move some positions over to the CCCPD fund and continue that as an operating fund. And then, of course,
On that second bullet, if somebody just read this without the explanation, they would misinterpret that bullet.
okay,
Just say lower than
Lower
no
than.
new tax rate.
absolutely. So just real quick, some of the next steps for the next couple of meetings. Next week, we'll have the CED work session to go over that budget again. September 1st, at the council meeting, we'll have our first reading on the tax rate. We are required to have a hearing on the budget itself, so we'll have the first and final hearing on that. Our first readings for the year-end budget amendment, so we'll have that calculated for you. reading of the fee ordinance, as well as the utility base rate changes, and then adopt the CEDC budget and the CIP associated with the CEDC budget. Our last council meeting of
One, back to the
Yes, sir.
25th. Well, it's a work session, but it's a formal work session.
Yes, sir.
That's when we come up with,
It's a board meeting.
That's correct.
yeah, it's a board meeting, it's a work session.
That's- yeah,
Probably
so board
better
meeting
to
with
change that.
Public hearing.
Yeah, it
I
will
can
be,
do that.
yeah.
Final council meeting of the year, of course, will be the second final reading of the tax rate, adopting our rate, our budget, the budget amendment, the fee schedule, base rates, and our 5-year CIP. And that's all I have for you tonight.
That's great.
Very good.
Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, okay. Item 3 is to talk about see if we can come up with a date for a joint council and P and Z work session. So, pick out your calendars.
Calendar.
Anybody got some dates they want to throw out? Or days of the
Day
week?
or the evening, or what are we looking at here?
I suspect the evening to get everybody, people work, so, it could probably be early evenings.
One in August, September?
August is probably,
Not gone.
probably September.
Okay, what nights?
My kids are back in school, I'm here, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
pretty easy
wonderful.
right now, yeah.
Callie, what do you got any, no, you can't do dates or days of the week?
Just
or-
October's pretty busy, but September,
Labor Day.
pretty good.
Because I know sometimes days of the week.
Can we do
Okay.
September the 22nd?
22nd, we got a proposal. That's good with me.
Tuesday night?
Yeah, it'd be on a Tuesday night, it'd be a
Yeah,
fall.
Tuesday night,
I could do
22nd.
that.
Everybody
Every time.
so far, okay, we'll shoot for the 22nd, see what P and Z does.
6 o'clock?
Kids say. Pardon?
PM, what time?
I don't know. I'm pretty flexible. I mean,
I think that would work.
what time?
Clock would
6,
work.
6:30, huh?
Six.
Did
They've
you
been
discuss at
meeting-
one point
P&Z's
doing that
been
at
meeting
the
at
Colleyville Center
6:15
to
for their
space
work
out?
sessions.
Or was that,
Say it
they do
again.
that.
did you discuss at one point wanting to do that at the Colleyville Center to space out?
Yeah, to space out, I think it'd be easier. We could, because there's gonna be a bunch of us, we could set
It would be
tables and
better.
make sure we have
Okay.
plenty of space,
Would
yeah.
you like kind of a light casual meal then, if it's
Yeah.
at 6?
Yeah, yeah, and so you might check with them on dates, make sure
Okay.
that's okay. Very good. Okay, then the agenda tonight, I think we are gonna bring the Bluebonnet off the table, talk about it. We'll get lucky, we'll pass some. Not, we'll put it back on the table, right? And we still have all of the, of course, the Creekside second readings on the fences. We've talked about that pretty thoroughly, so I think we could probably move through those pretty quickly. And then we have resolutions on, I'll look at my agenda, I guess, make sure I get this right.
The garden.
The garden, yeah, to kind of
Tired.
eliminate the garden committee because they recommended that, which makes sense to me, because that takes real people that are going to champion it. We don't have that with all the COVID. It's real tough. Wastewater, water and wastewater rate advisory committee. So the plan on that is we've asked everybody that was on the committee before. We got 7 people that can re-up. We want to appoint them tonight. In the resolution as it reads, is that the mayor and George will be the elected officials participating with them. George was on the committee, and I went to every meeting before, so that's why that makes sense to me. Tim Raines will be appointed chair in the resolution, and Jeff Pfister vice chair. I've talked to both of them. They both agreed to that. I explained to them what we need to do, that what's been discussed by staff and that we've discussed it fits perfectly with what their recommendation previously was, so it should be easy. Just get, and I think Kyle can give an excellent presentation, get her back up to speed and explain it, show it, hey, it's really the same thing. I think they can do this in one meeting because we're really just looking for a
There'd be
recommendation.
a model, just like
Yeah.
you presented
Yeah.
tonight, yeah.
Yeah, and so if they can pull it off, and Tim and Jeff both can do it on the 24th, which is a Monday, because Tim goes out of town on vacation with another family the 25th. And so all that's lined up. Hopefully the committee members can show up that day, and George and me can show up that day, so we got 4. And we're assuming that they will agree to what's been recommended. We're assuming that in the budget. And so, because we would like to include the new fee structure in the ordinance that we'll vote on in the second meeting in September. And I explained all that to Tim and Jeff. And I think that's doable if they act quickly and just get a recommendation to us. Real simple, it doesn't have to be a big report, but they're good with it. I think we can pull that off.
Mayor, what time did you intend on Monday, the 24th?
I don't, it was sometimes in the evening or early evening, I don't care. I think me and George.
6, I can do any time.
Yeah, 6, kind of Tim and Jeff Pfister, let them kind of.
Mayor, I thought when you had the conversation with him that you all had discussed 5:30 when you were in my office.
Maybe I did, I just don't remember, but early evening.
I think you did say 5:30.
If I did, then yeah, that was, okay. Then that's what we should. And then a resolution appointing liaisons and boards that we talked about in work session last time. That's it. Only 3 items on the agenda. I think we could move through it pretty quick.
Do you think people will be here for the preschool or not?
The
They are,
daycare was
we-
asked to table.
They requested
Yeah.
a table.
Oh,
They want a
yeah,
table.
sorry, yeah.
You probably should announce that in the beginning.
Thank you.
If people
Yes,
are here.
yes, thank you, I'll do that, yeah. Okay, and that's the only other, did I miss anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Very good. And we're done. Any other thing before I close?
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ben.
Then I'm going to close the work session, and we're now moving into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code Chapter 551, Subchapter D, Section 551.071 legal, Section 551.072 real estate, and Section 551.087 economic development. We're now in executive session.
Okay, does anybody know, somebody's gotta know this. My friend Troy that's in the Eagle